She jumped right in front of the road roller, arms stretched like she was stopping a tank. Her name was Diane, but everyone in the county called her Karen with a clipboard, bright pink vest, plastic badge that said HOA enforcement officer, and sunglasses too big for her face. She slammed her clipboard against the windshield and yelled, "This is private HOA property. You can't pave this road." I didn't even flinch. I just leaned out the side, arms crossed, and looked past her to the gravel road we'd been fixing for weeks. It wasn't HOA property, it was mine. Bought it, surveyed it, fenced it, and the county approved the permit 3 days ago. But Karen wasn't here for facts. She was here for control. 2 more of her self-appointed officers blocked the backhoe. One had a whistle, the other, a walkie-talkie and a fold-out stop, HOA inspection sign, like we were entering a war zone. Stayed calm. I had to. My little boy Eli was watching from the cab of my truck, munching on cereal straight from the box. Karen tapped her fake badge again. "You're violating HOA Ordinance 6B. 1. No road work without board review." I said nothing, just gave a nod behind her. She spun around, face drained. The real sheriff was already walking down the gravel, legs crunching slow and steady, hand resting on his belt. "Been here since morning, sipping coffee from my thermos, helping us mark flag." "Points, Diane," he said with that low, disappointed voice. "You really want to do this again?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. He pulled out a paper from his pocket. "This here's the county permit. Signed. Approved. This ain't HOA land. You knew that last week, and you sure know it now." She shook her head, still trying to hold the illusion, but the board hasn't. He cut her off. "The board doesn't run the law. Now step aside, or I'll have to treat this like obstruction of a legal operation." I swear for a second she almost did it, almost dared him. But her legs gave up before her ego did. She stepped back, not quietly. "This isn't over. You're ruining the creek." "Ah!" "The neighborhood will hear about this." I didn't respond. I just reached for the ignition, fired up the roller, and whispered to Eli, "Watch closely, son. This is how you flatten bullies." Karen didn't go home. She stood there, arms folded, seething on the shoulder of the road like she was guarding sacred ground. Her 2 officers backed away fast once the sheriff pulled out his phone. They weren't about to get cuffed. For HOA cosplay, but Karen? She doubled down. 10 minutes later, as we started paving the first 30 feet, she whipped out her phone and shouted loud enough for the whole creek to hear, "I'm reporting an environmental violation. There's endangered frogs here." I stopped the machine again, sighed, and looked at the sheriff. He was already dialing. Another truck pulled up, a county environmental officer. He'd also been looped in from the start. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "we've surveyed this zone. No endangered species, no protected wetlands. You're wasting county resources." Karen turned red. "I saw frogs." He raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, frogs aren't illegal." She stomped off into the trees, muttering something about lawsuits and letters to the mayor. But 5 minutes later, she came back, and this time she brought backup. A white SUV with flashing amber lights skidded to a stop. 2 guys jumped out wearing tactical-style polos labeled HOA Rapid Response Unit. One of them was recording. The other had zip ties on his belt. "They marched toward me like they had real power, sir," the taller one said. "You're hereby ordered to cease unauthorized construction under HOA authority. If you continue, we'll place you under citizen's arrest for destruction of common property." The sheriff laughed. "Out loud, son," he said, stepping forward. "You try to lay a finger on this man, and you'll be arrested for impersonating an officer and attempted kidnapping." The 2 units froze. Karen ran up behind them, shrieking, "You said you'd take control of the site. Do something." But the short guy with the camera had already dropped his act. He looked straight at the sheriff. "We were told this was HOA land. We didn't know." "You do now," the sheriff said, flipping out his badge and walking toward them. "Hand over those fake credentials. Now." Karen tried to interrupt, but something happened right then that shut her down completely. "The land surveyor, my cousin." Joe walked up, holding a drone controller. "Hey, Sheriff," he said loud enough for all of us to hear. "You want me to play the footage from last Thursday? The one where Karen tries to move the property markers at 2 a.m.? Karen's face went pale. She turned, ran straight into a mud pit. She landed face first with a splat that echoed across the whole clearing. Her designer sneakers sunk instantly, and when she tried to scramble up, one of them slipped off and vanished into the muck. Eli, still sitting in the truck, burst out, laughing. Even the sheriff had to bite his lip. Karen sat there on her knees, covered in sludge, hair stuck to her face, still clutching that useless clipboard like it held the Constitution. She screamed, "This is harassment. I'm going to sue all of you." Joe didn't even flinch. "Sure," he said, calmly tapping his drone remote. "Just make sure you spell your name right when I upload this footage to the county portal and YouTube." One of the fake rapid response guys leaned over to the sheriff and whispered, "We were just hired on Facebook, ... She paid us $100 each to stand here and look official. We thought this was like a protest or something." The sheriff chuckled. "Consider your protest over. Go home." They didn't argue. They bolted. Karen tried to rise again, but slipped hard. This time she let out a high-pitched squeal that got caught in the trees. Her phone, still clutched in her left hand, flipped out and skidded across the gravel. I walked over, picked it up, and looked at the screen. She was mid-call with someone named HOA Legal. "Ops." I raised an eyebrow and handed it to the sheriff. He pressed the speaker button. A man's voice answered, "Hello? Diane, do you have visual confirmation the illegal work has stopped?" The sheriff didn't hesitate. "Nope, but we do have confirmation of attempted fraud, impersonation of authority, and possible tampering with county markers. This call's being recorded. You might want to lawyer up." Click. The line went dead. Karen's whole body slumped, like she'd just realized her entire fantasy of being Queen of the Creek had turned into a felony investigation. Looked at her one last time and said, "You could have just knocked on my door like a normal neighbor." She didn't reply, just sat there mud-covered, watching as the roller fired back up and moved forward. The road wasn't just being built now. It was being carved right through every lie she told, and I hadn't even used my real leverage yet, because the next permit we filed, that one would put a gate across the only HOA access point to the creek, and Karen had no idea. By the next morning, it was all over town. Someone had clipped the drone footage and uploaded it to a local Facebook group, Clake County Watchdogs. In less than 12 hours, it had over 80,000 views. The title? HOA Queen Eats Mud After Faking. Authority? The comments were brutal. She really brought zip ties to a county site. "Where do they order these HOA badges, Etsy? Man's building a road. She's out here playing SimCity." Hadn't said a word publicly. I didn't need to. The footage did everything. Karen's HOA board was in full-blown panic mode. That morning, he called an emergency closed session and posted a statement on the HOA website. "We regret recent actions taken by one of our members acting independently. The HOA board is cooperating fully with local authorities." Translation: "Hey, we're throwing Karen under the bus before the tires even warmed up." But the real kicker came at 2 p.m. when a white sedan pulled into my lot. A woman stepped out neatly dressed, sharp eyes. Clipboard that actually meant something. She was from the county recorder's office. "I just need your signature here," she said, flipping the folder open. "It's the final approval for the secondary access gate. You're clear to build." Karen had tried to delay that permit for 3 months. Filed complaints, claimed it would limit community enjoyment of natural views. Even said I was using it for commercial development. All lies, but now it was done. I signed the paper and the woman smiled. "You're going to get a lot of angry calls." I smiled back. "They're welcome to hike 2 miles around if they want lake access." That evening, as we started placing the posts for the new gate, a black SUV pulled up just outside the fence. Karen was inside. She didn't step out, just stared through the window, eyes red, makeup gone. Same clipboard now resting quietly in her lap. I didn't wave, didn't smirk. I just kept working, because when someone tries to weaponize fake power, the best revenge is showing them what real authority looks like, and I hadn't even shown her the sheriff's second warrant yet. That was coming tomorrow. The next morning started quiet, but not for long. Just after 9 a.m., two official county vehicles pulled into the HOA clubhouse parking lot. A few board members were already inside, likely planning damage control. They didn't even notice the sheriff walking in with two plainclothes investigators and a folded stack of documents under his arm. Karen wasn't there yet, but they didn't need her. I stood across the creek near my new gate, sipping coffee as Joe's drone hovered above, catching every angle. This wasn't just justice, it was public proof. The county had finally acted on the footage we submitted, the 2 a.m. video of Karen moving boundary stakes, spraying over survey paint, and hammering in fake HOA property signs with a rubber mallet. It wasn't petty anymore. It was criminal. Tampering 20 minutes later, Karen's little white sedan screeched into the lot. She jumped out, ranting before her car even stopped moving. This is harassment. Yep. You have no jurisdiction here. I'm the HOA president, and this is private. The sheriff didn't flinch. He held up a warrant and said, "Calm as ever. You're being served for unlawful use of HOA authority, destruction of county survey property, and filing false claims against a legal permit holder. You'll need to come with us." Karen froze. The board members stared, silent. One of them quietly stepped away and pulled their name plaque off the wall. Another began dialing a lawyer. Karen, shaking now, tried one last act. "I have rights. I'm on the HOA insurance plan. You can't just walk in here." One of the plainclothes officers stepped forward and dropped a folder on the clubhouse table. Inside, emails, voice recordings, the kicker proof that Karen had forged to HOA board vote records just to block my permit. Her own people turned on her, Diane.
One board member said softly, "You told us he was building illegally?"
"You said the county had concerns. You lied to all of us." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The sheriff placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "Time to go." They walked her out past the parking lot where the new gate had just been finished. The private road, nitrogen monoxide trespassing sign gleamed in the morning light. Eli sat on the back of the truck, legs swinging, holding a big hand-painted sign that read, "My dad builds roads, Karen builds drama." The sheriff smiled when he saw it. And Karen? She didn't look back, because the moment she did, she would have seen the final twist. My wife had just arrived in a formed crisp badge on her chest. She was federal land enforcement, and Karen had trespassed on her jurisdiction. Karen didn't even make it to the station before reality hit her. Halfway down the county road, the sheriff got a call. He glanced at the screen, let it ring once, then answered on speaker. "Yeah." Serious voice on the other end responded. "Confirmed. Federal boundary violation. Section 17.3. Officer is on site." She pressed charges. Karen's eyes darted between the sheriff and the rearview mirror. "What does that mean?" "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer right. "Away. Just adjusted the mirror so she could see the cruiser behind them. My wife was driving it. Official vehicle. Federal markings. No questions about authority anymore." The sheriff finally spoke, calm as ever. "It means this just went from county to federal, Diane. You didn't just trespass, you interfered with protected land oversight. That's a felony." Karen's voice cracked. "I didn't know." "Nobody told me it was." He cut her off. "You did know. That creek you keep calling HOA property? It borders federal conservation land. You moved markers. You blocked access. You even called it in. As a violation to the feds, you basically reported yourself." She slumped back against the seat, silent back at the site. Things had shifted fast. The HOA board wasn't just scrambling, they were unraveling. One member quit on the spot. Another started giving statements to the press, claiming Karen acted alone and misled the entire board. Joe had already uploaded the drone footage to 3 news outlets. His caption? "It's why we don't hand clipboards to control freaks." But the real nail in the coffin? The sheriff and my wife had submitted a joint report to the county and state attorney's office. They weren't just pressing charges, they were reviewing all of Karen's past complaints, violations, and citizen reports from the last 3 years, every fine she ever wrote, every permit she ever blocked, Every fake, emergency HOA meeting she held in her backyard. My phone rang just before sunset. It was the sheriff again. She's in holding. Might get out on bond tonight. But the federal side won't be so kind. I nodded. Appreciate everything, Sheriff. Just doing my job, but if you ask me, he paused. Someone needed to do it a long time ago. I looked out at the freshly paved road, the sun glinting off the new gate, and Eli racing the drone across the empty gravel lot. For the first time in months. The place was quiet, safe, ours. But something told me this wasn't the end of Karen's story, because people like her. They don't surrender, they plot. And something about that look she gave my wife from the cruiser window didn't feel like defeat. It felt like a storm was still coming.